Today, we're strapping on our thinking caps for a really fascinating exploration into how young athletes develop.
Hmm.
We've got some interesting material here, mostly aimed at parents and coaches, but honestly, if you've ever wondered about, the best way to build physical skills.
Yeah, or why some kids seem to dominate really early on.
Exactly. While others maybe develop a bit later. If that's you, you're going to find this valuable.
Absolutely. Our goal today is to really dig into the science behind long-term athletic growth.
Right.
We want to understand why building a wide range of movement skills early, that broad foundation, why that's so much better than, say, rushing into specializing in just one sport too soon.
It's about potential over time, yeah.
Exactly. Cultivating that potential.
And speaking of early development, here's something that really struck me from the reading. You know how the fastest, strongest kids often just stand out in youth sports?
Oh, yeah, definitely. They catch your eye.
Well, it turns out that early dominance isn't necessarily a great predictor of, long-term elite performance. Yeah.
Interesting.
Often it just comes down to their biology. They might just be more physically mature right then.
So it's a snapshot, not the whole picture.
Precisely.
Right.
Don't be fooled by those early wins. They often reflect that biological maturity, not necessarily, superior skill or athleticism.
That's such a crucial point. And what's really intriguing is that this early physical edge can sometimes, well, it can mask maybe a lack of fundamental technique.
Ah, okay, so they rely on size or speed.
Right. And then as the competition gets tougher, more sophisticated later on, those initial physical gifts alone just won't cut it.
That's when that well-rounded skill base becomes really essential, I guess.
Absolutely vital.
Right. And to back this up, we're looking at these things called long-term athlete development models, LTAD.
LTAD, yeah. Think of it like a roadmap.
Yeah, a roadmap for building athletes over years, not weeks, focusing on that long-term growth instead of just, the next game's score.
And these aren't just theories cooked up somewhere. They're supported by some big organizations.
Like USA Hockey, US Lacrosse.
The International Youth Conditioning Association, the IYCA, they all emphasize developing something called physical literacy before jumping into really intense, specific training.
Physical literacy. Okay, let's park that term for a sec. We'll come back to it. Let's dive deeper, maybe starting with the really young ones.
Okay, sounds good. So when we're talking about kids under 8, the main mission really is just a movement. Simple as that.
The bedrock phase, they called it.
Yeah, that's a good term. Imagine it like learning the alphabet of athleticism. Their main goal is exploring all the ways their body can move.
And crucially, enjoying it.
Right? Absolute critical. Having fun with it.
So we're talking about encouraging stuff like hopping, skipping,
Climbing on things, rolling around, balancing.
running, throwing, just a whole mix. Variety and fun.
Exactly. And what's really important, maybe just as important, is what not to do at this stage.
Right, like avoiding structured competitive games.
Definitely. And absolutely no specializing in a single sport yet.
Got it.
What we want to see is that play-based movement. Imaginative games, maybe setting up little obstacle courses in the garden.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
It's all about fostering that physical creativity. This period is so vital because, as the sources suggest, it's like you're laying down the circuit board for coordination later on.
Ah, the circuit board analogy. I like that.
Yeah, the more diverse the movement experiences a child has now, the better the wiring is going to be for more complex athletic skills down the line.
That makes perfect sense. Build the toolkit first. Then you can choose your tool later.
Precisely.
Okay, so that foundation is laid. Now let's move to the next stage. Kids aged, say, 8 to 11. Here the big idea is building physical literacy.
Right, back to that term, physical literacy.
Explain that a bit more. It sounds important.
It is. Think of it like being fluent in the language of movement. You're comfortable, you're capable, you're confident in a whole range of physical activities.
So not just good at soccer, but generally athletic.
Exactly. Competence and confidence across different environments, different situations. It's not about excelling in just one thing yet. It's about having that comprehensive base of movement skills.
Which is why we're still encouraging multiple sports during these years.
Absolutely. Keep that variety going.
And this is where we start to introduce some basic physical training, but gently.
Yeah, gently is the key word. We might start layering in things like bodyweight exercises, maybe some short sprints for speed, coordination drills.
But the focus is still form and fun, not pushing intensity.
100%. Correct technique and making sure it's enjoyable are paramount. This age group, neurologically, they're actually incredibly receptive to learning new movement patterns.
Oh, interesting. So it's a good window.
It's a fantastic window, a great time to teach the fundamentals, proper running mechanics, how to jump and land safely, those basic bodyweight moves like push-ups, lunges, squats.
But, youth sports can get pretty competitive. How do parents and coaches resist that urge to, push harder, more structured training now?
That is a really common challenge. The key is probably to redefine what success looks like at this age.
Okay.
Instead of focusing purely on wins and losses, shift the emphasis to skill development, effort, and again, enjoyment.
Right.
Maybe encourage focusing on one sport per season, but rotating through different sports over the year. That keeps things fresh, builds that broad base, but avoids too much pressure in any one area.
Makes sense. Keep it broad, keep it fun. Okay, foundation laid. Physical literacy developing. Now we hit what the sources call the critical years for speed and coordination, ages 11 to 14.
Yes, these years are really significant.
Why critical? What's special about this window?
Well, this is a really opportune time, maybe the most opportune time, to develop speed, agility, and that overall athletic robustness.
And timing matters, doesn't it? Something about growth spurts.
Exactly. Ideally, we want to maximize this development before they hit their peak height velocity.
The peak high velocity. That's just the fastest growth spurt period.
Right, when they shoot up. It's generally more efficient to develop speed and coordination before those really rapid changes in body size and limb length happen. The body's just a bit more adaptable then.
Okay, so the training starts to get a bit more structured now.
Yes, a bit more. We begin to incorporate more structured speed and agility drills, exercises designed to improve coordination even when they're getting tired.
Coordination under fatigue. Yeah.
And some fundamental strength training. But, and this is important, it's also a time where you need to watch carefully. Those growth spurts can really disrupt their movement patterns temporarily.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Suddenly your arms and legs feel longer, center of gravity shifts.
Yeah.
You might feel clumsy.
Exactly that. They might seem a bit awkward. Movements that used to be smooth might look a little, well, gangly.
Is that normal?
Completely normal part of development. But it also signals a need for what we might call movement re-education.
Okay, what does that mean?
It just means we might need to help them relearn or adjust how they move to account for their changing bodies. Refining technique again.
And what if a child, missed out on some of that diverse movement stuff earlier? Is it too late now?
It's definitely not too late now, but this period becomes even more critical than for trying to address those gaps.
So catch-up is possible.
Yes, catch-up is possible, especially with structured programs that really focus on fundamental movement mechanics and things like reactive agility, but it takes focused effort.
Okay.
And another layer here is the social and psychological side. That really starts coming to the forefront. Kids react differently to challenges, to the awkwardness sometimes. They need support tailored to them.
That makes a lot of sense. It's a complex age. Okay, moving on then to ages 15 and up. This is often when we see athletes starting to, specialize more, right?
That tends to be the case, yeah. Things like school sports teams, higher levels of competition, maybe just figuring out what they truly love and are good at. It often leads athletes to focus on one or two main sports.
But the key message is,
the key message is that specialization should be supported by strong physical preparation, not defined by it. The conditioning underpins the sport skill, not the other way around.
got it. So what are the main training priorities now for this older group?
The focus naturally shifts. We're looking more towards developing strength and power more seriously, refining movement efficiency so it's really specific to the demands of their chosen sport.
And injury prevention must be huge here too.
Absolutely critical. And we also need to address any lingering weaknesses, maybe in coordination, posture, core control, that perhaps got missed or weren't fully developed earlier.
What about the kids who weren't necessarily the stars back when they were 10 or 12? The late bloomers.
Yeah, what about them? The sources are really clear on this. Late bloomers often possess significant potential. Don't write them off.
So that early dominance thing really doesn't predict everything.
Not at all. In fact, athletes who built that really solid, broad movement foundation often peak later in their careers, and potentially higher than those who specialize too early.
Why is that?
Well, those who specialized early without the base might hit plateaus sooner, or they might become more susceptible to overuse injuries because their bodies aren't as robust or adaptable overall.
So a proper, well-designed strength and conditioning program becomes non-negotiable at this stage.
Absolutely essential. It needs careful planning, managing training load, progressive overload principles, periodization, planning training cycles around their competitions and goals.
Tailored to the athlete.
Yes, tailored to their training age, their goals, their sport. And let's not forget, the psychological piece becomes even bigger now.
Confidence, motivation.
Handling pressure, managing stress.
Yeah.
These factors can really make a difference at higher levels.
Yeah.
But it's also so important to remember, not every kid needs to become a pro or an Olympian.
Right. That's not the goal for everyone.
Exactly. The goal should be giving every individual the chance to grow, to improve, and just to enjoy their sport, whatever level that might be.
This whole approach really pushes back against that idea of intense early specialization, doesn't it?
It really does.
The sources talk about prioritizing development over deselection. I like that phrase. What does it really mean in practice?
Yeah, it's a powerful idea. It means we need to stop prematurely cutting kids or labeling them based purely on whether they're blooming early physically.
Because the early bloom doesn't guarantee future success.
The evidence strongly suggests it doesn't. Early success in youth sports is often not a reliable indicator of who will excel 10 years later.
And many top athletes actually specialize later.
That's right. Many elite performers spent years playing multiple sports, building that diverse skill set before focusing more intensely later in their teens.
Okay, so if we were to boil it down, what are the absolute key principles for anyone guiding young athletes? Parents, coaches, regardless of the kid's ultimate ambitions.
Well, first, develop the whole athlete. Think broad physical capabilities first, not just sport-specific skills initially.
Right.
Second, let those specialized skills emerge from that strong, varied movement foundation. Don't force them onto a weak base.
Makes sense.
And third, maybe the most crucial, foster an environment that encourages fun, provides appropriate challenges as they mature, and supports, hopefully, a lifelong love for being active.
It really sounds like there's no shortcut to, athletic greatness or even just competence and enjoyment.
No quick fix, no magic bullet.
It was about taking a smarter, more patient path, focusing on building that well-rounded person, that well-rounded athlete from the ground up.
Precisely. Investing in the long journey of development, not just chasing the immediate win.
So as you're listening and thinking about all this, here's something to consider. If building a strong, adaptable athlete really requires this kind of broad foundation and patient long-term growth, what might the implications be for developing expertise in other parts of life? Could this perspective focusing on fundamentals, exploration, patience, be just as valuable when learning an instrument or a language, or even in our careers?
That's a really interesting thought to end on.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for exploring this deep dive with us.